Welcome to Sterling Visionary Voices, the podcast dedicated to bringing you diverse, innovative leadership insights and actionable strategies for success. Join hosts Laura McNeil and Bob Medeiros as they explore the art and science of role model leadership through thought-provoking conversations with real professionals. Whether you're a seasoned leader or aspiring to excellence, Sterling Visionary Voices is your guide to navigating the complexities of your leadership journey.
The study of perception stems back to the days of Aristotle, when he introduced his theory of perception as founded on a premise that we can only perceive what we organically and physically are able to perceive. This concept was buttressed years later by Lee Atwater, who was a Republican consultant and strategist for Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush, when he said, perception is reality. From a physiological perspective, perceptions are our sensory experiences of the world. They are how we recognize, interpret, and respond to sensory events. Our guest today is a renowned and published expert on the study of perceptions and the variables that actually impact organizational and leadership effectiveness. Dr. Maja Zelihic is a Fullbright Specialist. She's a full professor, a Globe researcher, and the dean of the Forbes School of Business and Technology at the University of Arizona Global Campus. She is also a co-author of the book, The Power of Perception, as well as the Perception Power Index, an assessment designed to help organizations and individuals recognize variables that impact successful global leadership effectiveness. I'd like to welcome you, Maja. In this day and age of DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, I can only imagine that perceptions play a very formidable part in creating successful experiences in organizations. Taking this into consideration, could you provide us with some insights gained through perception-based research that might help today's leaders make better decisions?
Well, thank you so much, Laura. Thank you for having me, and greetings to all of your listeners. Thank you for mentioning Greek philosophers, Aristotle, and some of his work, which was pivotal when it comes to exploring the field of perception. He was mainly focusing on the senses, and he was focusing on what one would really bring closer to that concept of perception is reality. Perception is what we hear, what we see, what we smell, what we touch, and so forth. Our work, our research, we were actually focusing a bit more on Plato, actually, and his allegory of the cave, where Plato's theory, even though he was not necessarily focusing on it as a theory of perception, was that one is never really truly aware as to what he or she perceives. Is there such a thing as a business reality? Is there such a thing as perception as a reality? Or is these things that we're seeing, are those the shadows that our mind has created? So you were talking about a perception in the concept of today's modern workplace. What we were doing through the research and through the index and a lot of things and a lot of interactions that I had with different companies across the world, trying to help them with getting the perception to understand it first and foremost, how it impacts the way they communicate, the way they make decisions, their critical thinking, how it impacts themselves as leaders, but also their employees. What are they trying to say that their employees are actually sometimes perceiving well versus not, and what impacts the factors that influence perception within a workplace? But we can pause and say, yes, we're talking about this as from a standpoint of how perception impacts the leadership or how perception impacts the interactions at a workplace. But perception is impacting every single encounter we have in life. So perception is a concept that we have to embrace and understand in every single venue of life.
So that's interesting, because if perceptions influence us from a sensory perspective, how real are they? Has there ever been any studies on the reality of perceptions?
There was a lot of studies, and we touched upon some studies in our book, but ultimately we are disagreeing with the statement that perception is reality, because the core question is whose reality it is. Because, for example, you and I were interacting right now in this particular show And I assume that what I'm saying is perceived well by you. Perhaps my assumption is that you will find this of interest. The key concept here is we're hoping that our viewers will be perceiving this as a value, whether or not to apply it at their place of work and everyday life. But that is our hope. That is what we're trying to project. That is not something that we know for a fact, because every single audience member may listen to the same message and come up with a different findings. We established the concept of perception at work being a fluid business reality. We were talking about many different examples, some of the examples that are shared from my personal life, where I'm the recipient of the same message in a meeting from the upper leadership, and you have 100 other people hearing the same message and quiz us after we exit the room, and you will, hopefully, the leaders understanding how perception works, they were clear enough for the vast majority of the audience members to perceive their message the way it's intended, but we don't know that for a fact. And you can quiz people from the standpoint of a person saying, we're all getting fired or we're all getting promoted, and they were in the same meeting. Because the leadership used keywords such as change and, this may be welcome by some, but this may be difficult for some others and so forth. So the vagueness of business communication a lot of times is creating distorted ways that perception can influence decision-making and critical thinking at work. But like I said, I always want to preface this by saying it is also the same in our everyday life. Perception is impacted by many different factors. We explored many of those, but there are many others that we haven't had a chance to touch upon in our book. Perception is impacted by our life experiences, by our gender, by our work experiences. It doesn't have to be always live, by our culture. Spirituality, we intentionally steered away from discussing religion because, yet again, we were focusing on the concept of spirituality and under the umbrella of spirituality, touching upon religion as well. All of those things are, impacting the way we perceive things. Our intelligence, our emotional intelligence, our critical thinking, all these different mechanisms. That's why the two of us, and we know each other for quite some time, and we even at some point of time, we worked at the same place part-time. We're educated, we're open-minded, hopefully. Throughout our interactions in life, I personally always had a great experience talking to you and engaging with you. We are both women. And we are, we're not very young. We're the midpoint of our lives. So there's a lot of similarities, a lot of variables that are very similar between the two of us. So one would hope going into a meeting, hearing the same message, we will walk out with, hopefully, with whatever the person conveying the message was trying to convey. But there's so many other things that we don't know about each other that may impact how we perceive the message. Because we were always engaged in a professional setting, we don't know much about each other's mindset as far as the culture, as far as the religion or spirituality. We also don't know much about each other's life experiences. Those are the things, that's the baggage that we bring to the table of every interactions we have in life, which makes us more suspicious of some people, which makes us reluctant to believe a message, which makes us more optimistic or more pessimistic. I've done so many lectures and so many talks where I was introducing my co-author as a person that I perceive to be an optimist. Her perception of herself is that she's just regular. She said she's not. But I said, but I'm comparing you to my own self, and I feel that I'm always a bit more pessimistic. And then we established that was, we pinpointed the variable that is impacting that change as to my life experiences.
So, that's really interesting. I know that you also co-authored or authored the Power of the Perception Index. Does that index dig into these multi-demographic factors and variables to really determine how to approach people?
Yes, we actually, what we've done is we actually created the index because the way we wrote the book is very conversational. we're both academics, and we were very afraid of communicating in a manner that would be turn-offish for the vast majority of audience members. So our book is very conversational. It's geared towards leaders, current leaders, or emerging leaders. But we were also mindful through the index that we want to work with corporations that will be able to apply that index, the parameters of the index, as they're making decisions, as they're understanding their employees from the standpoint of how they perceive information. So the EPIC process is geared towards just that. How do we perceive reality? How do we perceive business reality? And what are the mechanisms that we need to be aware of as we are evaluating and trying to determine the likelihood of something being perceived positively in a business setting? Also, as we're trying to increase our chances of success in life in general. So EPIC is based on the 4 core concepts. E is evaluate. As you wake up in the morning, not every single morning, but so recently I've been there. I'm evaluating my own life. What am I trying to do in this world? What am I trying for others to see? What am I trying to project? Am I self-aware? How am I perceived? There's nothing worse in the world of leadership than to lack any sense of self-awareness, where you're thinking that you're projecting something incredible, positive, and uplifting, and here are your employees perceiving you to be just the opposite. So it is that self-awareness concept, evaluating your own self in reference to the universe. P is predict. I am predicting that I'm not putting you to sleep right now. Now, I'm predicting this based, going back to Aristotle, you're nodding your head, you seem awake, you seem engaged, you're smiling. So I'm not offending you right now. You're not turned on by whatever I'm saying. You're not outraged. You're not mad. You're not angry. Of course, because I'm not talking about anything per se controversial, but at the same point of time, a lot of times in a business setting, so-and-so went to HR. They're horribly offended. And then the manager says, well, why? That is that whole concept of, am I self-aware? And I'm also predicting that you're going to embrace my message, that you will understand that it's coming. If I'm giving you some tough feedback, if I'm giving you performance evaluation, and I'm trying to be supportive, if I'm asking how you're doing, and you're understanding that I'm doing this from a standpoint of a person, not a manager. Hey, you seem a bit tired. Are you okay? Don't read that, are you okay, as you're questioning my work ethic, this and that. Perhaps this is generally, are you okay? You're not yourself in the last few weeks scenario, as opposed to you're going to HR saying, well, she asked me this in a confrontational manner. Yet again, sometimes the best intentions are interpreted in the worst manner. So that is that prediction. Then interpreting, you are interpreting my intent. I am interpreting yours, and we're going, I like to use the concept of a relationship as opposed to the business setting for this one. How many arguments can we possibly avoid with our significant others if we're reflecting on our words, their words, and that concept of interpretation? Also the concept of prediction. I've been married 115 years. And one thing that I've learned being married this long is there is a point of time when I approach my husband about this dream vacation that I want to have. We can predict when it's a good time to approach something. Why? Because we're increasing our chances of success, and I'm sure he's doing the same way. So it's a two-way street where we're interpreting each other and what our reaction is going to be. And then the C is correlate. We're putting it all together. And hopefully, if everything is done properly, when this index is administered, managers can figure out what's happening at their workplace as far as what's motivating their employees, how they're perceiving reality, what type of messaging they need to be focusing on, and so forth. That is that EPIC process. Evaluate, predict, interpret, correlate.
Wow, that's pretty insightful. So, out of curiosity, do you find that the gaps between leaders, managers, and their team members are smaller if the managers and the leaders get to know the team members on a more personal basis.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And now that I'm as a dean of business school, having full-time employees, part-time employees reporting to me, it is to the extent possible, it's very important to get to know the team players. Folks are motivated with different, different, yet again, going back to the life experience, professional experience, the stage of life and so forth. Something as simple as you have certain employees that do need to hear that they're doing a good job. If you're under the assumption, if you're a type of leader saying, well, she's doing a good job, if she's not doing a good job, I would talk to her. Well, that's not the right approach. Because if you only talk to your employee at the time when they're failing to do something, especially if you're doing this to an employee because who is proactively seeking some sort of reinforcement, kind of a, hey, you're doing good. Some employees need more of that reassurance. The other employees are more like, leave me alone. Let me know if there's something that I need to do. So you have to pinpoint, and only through life experience, only through experience with these individuals, you can actually pinpoint how to approach a different employee. I am not a believer at all in this whole, a lot of times you hear leaders say, I treat everyone this. Yes, as far as the legally, as far as making sure that you're embracing diversity, as far as making sure that you're giving everyone equal chances for improvement, absolutely you should. But when it comes to communicating to individuals, a person that is seeking my approval, a person that is seeking my reassurance, and me not sending that person an email in a month, knowing that they're probably internalizing, worried something is wrong, or continuously being on the case of an individual that really wants me to leave him alone, as long as he's doing a good job. Hey, I'm good. I'll let you know if I need something. So those are the simple things. Or yet again, that example that I just gave you, because it's kind of sort of fresh in my head. I am now realizing, back in the day when I was just a peer with many people, like a regular faculty, my question, how are you? You seem a bit off, was not perceived, was more welcomed. I have to phrase this a little bit more carefully, because they sometimes think I'm coming from a place of performance versus being the same person that I was several years ago, when I'm generally asking them, are you okay? Is everything okay? You have to be mindful of your position at that point of time, because it matters, because the way that they're perceiving, in the same way that I would perceive my vice provost, my president of the university. So if they were to ask me that kind of a same question, are they being conversational? Are they genuinely interested in me? Or is this a segue into, because you failed to deliver this item? Those are the type of things, so that's kind of the way and you learn so much throughout your career: clarity of the communication, transparency. Don't just say it, live it. It is okay to say, I do not know the answer to that. Because I'm noticing a lot of higher ups, a lot of leaders, they feel as if they're losing their power by telling folks, I don't know. I'm forcing myself to be very comfortable with that. This is all I have right now. Once I find out more, I will let you know. And I don't think I'm losing any sort of leadership qualities as a result of that.
In fact, maybe the opposite, right? If you connect on a deeper level with someone, the influence that you would have with them and the ability to motivate them through the trust that you've built may be even better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because they know that I will tell them what I know, what I have. And if there is more to that, a lot of times when we're going, through a lot of changes, which is totally normal. But it is, I'm very comfortable saying that these are the facts that we have at this point of time. Once we find more, we will share. Because a lot of times you're creating unnecessary rumor mill when you're sharing bits and pieces. And then everyone is, yet again, perception. Everyone is putting it together in a completely different manner. And reinforcing your communication, asking whether anyone has any questions, adding additional clarity, maybe having a follow-up meeting. There is a very fine balance between having unnecessary meetings or having meetings that are very productive, having a question answer session of some sort where people can just come in, especially in times of great change, and also understanding what motivates people. And sometimes you cannot give them the level of assurance they need, because perhaps there's a lot of changes where you don't have that. And being open and honest about this, and also relating to people, because a lot of times you are in that same boat.
Right.
And you can think, being that evaluate, self-aware, what are the answers that I need? What are some of the things that I question? What are some of the things that perhaps I need from my leaders? And let me make sure that I provide this to my employees as well.
So if I were to do an EPIC index, would I have to do it employee by employee?
It is the test to be taken individually to get your own results. But then what I've done through the Fullbright project, when I was doing workshops in Uganda, we actually were administering EPIC as part of the workshop, as part of the seminar. So then we would evaluate findings ourselves, but those were the women entrepreneurs from different industry sectors in Uganda, and we're actually computing the findings, and we're trying to work to further the research as far as doing a research article on it. But ultimately, companies that Dr. Diane Hamilton, my co-author, and I, that we worked with, those are the companies that would actually administer that index, whether it's within one department or to all of their employees. And based on that, they would actually come up with some findings as to what they can do to better motivate, what they can do to better communicate, and so forth. And also for the employees to be aware. I am, through the research, through the book, through the index, I always tell this in all of my lectures. I know what's impacting my perception. In order for me to be able to keep myself in check, not go down the rabbit hole of the opportunities I have. That's not to say that I master the perception to the point that I perceive everything properly. As a matter of fact, I have a few very, very distinct areas of opportunities that a couple of those I don't think I'll ever be able to correct. I'm just aware of it. So you have to be aware of the things, the way you perceive, the way you process. Let me ask you a question, actually, if I may.
Sure.
So in a business setting, let's talk about a business setting or personal, whichever one you're more comfortable answering. What do you feel, what are your opportunities sometimes when it comes to the way you perceive situations, events, and people?
I think the example you gave earlier, a simple question coming from you, how are you today, would be different than someone like my superior at work saying, how are you today? Something looks a little off.
Yeah.
It's that takeaway. It's the setting, I think, that sets the tone sometimes for the way that the question is delivered. And it's also, I think my perceptions are guided by the amount of interest someone pays in me as a human, not just in the role that I'm doing.
Exactly. You tend to be more loyal towards people that, show me that you care.
Right, exactly.
It's always interesting. Yeah.
It's leadership styles. There's certain styles that I have a tendency to not trust just because of the style, the nature of the style. And that is an opportunity for me. I have to draw this dichotomy between it's a leadership style versus truly where the person is coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, for example, I'm very outgoing. I'm very friendly. Surface level wise, it seems that one can have a relationship right away as far as the business relationship because of that friendliness. And now, it takes me a great deal to actually trust someone. As a matter of fact, I think that a lot of people would be incredibly surprised how long it took me to actually, and that is based on the life experiences. So I do say, when I was talking about my co-author being an optimist and me being, I'm actually a pessimist. I'm always prepared for the worst because that's my safeguard mechanism, my self-protection of, if I'm prepared for the worst, if that thing happens, then I'm not going to be devastated. And that is one thing that I really firmly state now at this stage of life that I'm at. I don't think I can change it. What I can do is as follows. I can be aware of it. And a lot of times my co-author, because she's truly my dearest friend, when I tell her about some stuff, and then this happened, and then this happened, and she's like, Maja, okay, is this really that way, or is that how you perceive it? I said, no, that's probably how I perceive it. She's like, we need more variables, we need more data. I said, okay. But my first your perception is like a muscle that you're actually having to actually work on. And my first instinct is, yet again, it's that self-preservation due to life circumstances where you tell me the change is coming. Scenario, then let's do something super simple. The change is coming. I am not anticipating it to be good. And in a business setting where change is constant, I have to control this. that 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 gut feeling to jump into, yeah, the change is going to be really bad for me. I'm aware of it. So this is when we're learning about perception, when we're studying perception, when we're taking index, we are becoming aware, and then we can control it. The same thing. And like I said, a lot of times we talked about relationships, and we actually, as we were exploring it, women versus men. And we have one item in our book where a gentleman is looking at a painting and a lady is looking at the painting, and she said, oh, look at the sun and the way it hits the barn and the old man and his face, and she's all romantic about that painting and it's so beautiful and this that. And I said, well, this barn needs to be repainted. Now, superbly simplistic, and that was supposed to be, of course, you're gonna have, my husband is an artist, so he's gonna see exactly. I would probably the one saying, because the flip rolls, oh well, this board has to be repainted. My husband would be looking. But the ultimate thing is, the whole thing that we were trying to convey is that we are perceiving a life differently. And also this whole women leaders, this push that we're not supposed to replicate male leadership. We're not supposed to become men leaders. We're supposed to come up with our own path, with our own way. We've done tons of research with the Center of Women's Leadership here at the Forbes School of Business, where we're saying, let's embrace some of the qualities, some of the strengths we have as women. We, at least in life, we tend to be a bit more empathetic. We're showing a little bit but what ends up happening with women leaders, sometimes we're trying to be stronger than anyone, and then we're becoming more aggressive, cold, and so forth. We're losing those natural qualities we're born with that we can work within in order to be better leaders even.
Right. More empathetic, nurturing. So, one thing I know about you, Maja, is you've traveled the globe. You've been to like the corners of the universe, if I could say, the corners of the earth. And you've met with women leaders from the most obscure places. Can you share a story about one place you went where you had, you walked away from these women leaders and learned such a great lesson?
Many places. We've done research in Haiti, and we were studying small enterprises. And that was a few years ago, and I'm sure everyone watching the news knows that Haiti right now, Haiti's been struggling for quite some time, but right now it's in a very dire shape. We were studying these thriving enterprises that are successful, with the successful leaders despite all the odds. And the enterprise we were studying in particular was actually a male-owned enterprise, but there were several very strong women leaders that were navigating the troublesome waters of the country that was quite unstable, the economy that was deteriorating, the poverty, and so forth, finding their own path and finding their own place under the sun, and trying to make a difference within their communities. Same thing that I've encountered in Uganda, that I just mentioned, in Zambia. We do have it easy, and now this is going to be controversial and maybe perceived as negative by some listeners. We do have it easy in the West. Yes, we still have some opportunities. Yes, we have not shattered the glass ceilings as of yet, but we're cracking it every single day. But we do have it easy in comparison to some women leaders that I've met. One of those women leaders, the most inspiring woman leader that I met, is the former vice chancellor of the Mulungushi University in Zambia, Dr. Lisi Nambi. She became one of the first vice chancellors, if not the first vice chancellor, in the Southern African region. This is the lady that her father gave her a choice of swimming to the other end of their village in order to go to school. The only way was swimming. So she would put her books on her head. She would swim, and the waters would be very treacherous, and sometimes people would drown. So this lady would swim across that river in order to go to school. Limited supplies, absolutely no, perceivably no major opportunities in life, and she became one of the first female chancellors, vice chancellors of the university. She did have one thing that I always talk about with the Center for Women's Leadership. She had a strong father who was supportive of her. So in a girl's life, a strong male presence, whether it's a father, whether it's a brother, whether it's a later on in life, a husband and a son and a partner, that can make a difference between someone achieving their full potential or not thriving at all. In Lisey's case, it was her father who gave her this impossible choice that if we were talking about that choice, what do you mean you're going to send your kid across the river? Aren't you going to, there was nothing else for him to do. He said, either you're going to stay here in the village or you're going to be able to go to school. And the only way to go to school was literally to swim in the treacherous waters and all that stuff. And she is a force to be reckoned with. Everything about Lisey is so when you say the most inspirational woman leader, very easy choice for me. Many others, but immediately, Lisey is the choice.
That's an amazing story. Amazing story. Well, it's been great spending some time with you, Maja, today. Really appreciate the insights and the perspectives, if I can use that word. The perspectives of the perceptions is really quite enlightening and interesting. So thank you once again.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and greetings to your listeners, and thank you for having me, Laura. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Sterling Visionary Voices, Insights for Role Model Leadership from the Sterling Council. Discover more and connect with us at sterlingvisionaryvoices.com.